As President Joe Biden prepared to deliver his State of the Union address in February, speculation was rampant that an announcement of his plans to seek a second term in 2024 wouldn't be too far behind. Biden likely to announce 2024 re-election bid not long after State of the Union address, read a CBS News headline, and then there was this one from Fox. Biden's 2024 re-election announcement could come after his State of the Union speech. But how soon? Dun, dun, dun. Now, that was almost two months ago now, and there's still been no re-election announcement for Biden, which begs the question, what gives? Well, let's start here with a little bit of history of presidential announcements. So Donald Trump didn't actually formally announce he was running for a second term until June 2019, although he filed a statement of candidacy for the race with the Federal Election Committee on his first actual day in office, January 20th, 2017. He said at the time the paperwork, quote, does not constitute a formal announcement of my candidacy for the 2020 election. Barack Obama before him announced his own bid for a second term via a video that was released on April 5th, 2011. As my administration and folks across the country fight to protect the progress we've made and make more, we also need to begin mobilizing for 2012 long before the time comes for me to begin campaigning in earnest, Obama said in that video. And it wasn't until May 2003 that George W. Bush formally filed the paperwork to make himself a candidate for a second term. Right now, this is the building block phase, the legal phase, the fundraising phase, said Bush Press Secretary Ari Fleischer of the Bush announcement. So, looked at that way, Biden isn't actually behind his predecessors at all when it comes to formally making clear his plan to run for a second term. If he hasn't announced in, say, 2 more months, then he would be a little bit outside of recent historic norms, although not wildly so. Presidents do typically wait longer than challengers to formalize their candidacies, and there's one simple reason behind it. The average person hates politics. So the longer a president can look solely like a president and not a candidate for president, the better, or so goes the conventional wisdom. You rack up policy accomplishments. You deliver federal funds via the infrastructure bill to as many communities as possible. You look big and magnanimous and as nonpartisan as you can. Now you might, logically, ask this. Why not then wait as long as possible, like into the actual election year, to announce a re-election bid? The answer is also relatively simple. It takes a very long time to build a national campaign and especially raise the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars it takes to run said campaign. Biden, it's worth noting, raised more than $1 billion with a B dollars from donors during the 2020 campaign. So what every incumbent president is trying to do then is find the sweet spot on the calendar between taking advantage of being president and the necessities of running a modern and well-financed presidential campaign. In every campaign, there are other factors that go into the when and even the how of announcing for president. This campaign, for example, has been extremely slow to develop on the Republican side, with only former President Donald Trump and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley currently in the race. Now that slowness, coupled with Trump's ongoing legal problems that at least seem likely to come to a head sometime very soon, make it easier for Biden to hold off on his own announcement. Trump, for his part, has also focused most of his energy and his attacks on fellow Republicans, especially Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, so far, which leaves Biden to do his own thing, largely unattacked. Now, on the other hand, Trump is a former president of the United States, and most polling I've seen shows him running even or close to it with Biden. So it might behoove Biden to get going sooner-ish rather than later. Sidebar. I could also accept the other side of that same argument, that leaving Trump in the race on his own would allow the always self-destructive former president to do more harm to himself than good. So at least put that in your brain and consider it. Then there's this. Biden is notoriously indecisive about big decisions, like running for a second term. As Politico wrote of the president last year, President Joe Biden is driving officials across his administration a little nuts with what they say is a pattern of indecisiveness, according to several people familiar with the matter. And the report went on to say this: on several consequential issues, potential student loan forgiveness and the repeal of tariffs against China, among others, the decision-making process has dragged on for over a year to the frustration of many Democratic officials inside and outside the administration. So look, in short, this is a pattern with Biden. Remember back to 2016 when he was trying to decide whether or not to enter the Democratic primary against Hillary Clinton, among others. There were a slew of stories back then about the frustration among some that the outgoing VP simply couldn't make up his mind. Biden, you'll remember, ultimately decided against the race, citing the lack of an appropriate time window in which to run. Now, to be clear, all signs point to Biden running again. His wife, Jill Biden, told the Associated Press in late February that her husband, quote, says he's not done. He's not finished what he started, and that's what's important.
Well, he says he's not done. He's not finished what he started. And that's what's important.
So what? Biden's natural indecision will likely stress Democrats out between now and whenever he decides to make his campaign official, which, if history is any guide, is sometime within the next month.